The Deathworld Council Hall was an architectural marvel of survival. Its walls were forged from materials stronger than starship armor. Its ceilings were engineered to withstand the fury of radiation storms that could strip a planet bare. The very air you breathed was a testament to its design, scrubbed clean by systems that filtered out poison, fire, and even the unforgiving vacuum of space. This hall had seen it all. It had hosted warlords whose names were whispered in fear across galaxies, planet killers who treated stars like playthings, and entire species whose legacies were built on the ruins of other civilizations. But today, for the first time in its long and storied history, the hall itself felt uneasy. The source of this tension was a single, unassuming figure, a human. He walked into the cavernous chamber with a calm, measured stride, completely unarmed, carrying nothing but a small, dark bag. Hundreds of alien eyes, from compound lenses to infrared pits, tracked his every move. Humans were the newcomers on the galactic stage. To most of the council members, they were a cosmic joke, fragile, soft-skinned, weak. They hailed from a world so ridiculously gentle, a garden world some called it, teeming with water, oxygen, and life. To the hardened Deathworld species present, these were not signs of paradise, but a list of deadly poisons and corrosive agents. The human reached the seat designated for his nascent star nation and sat down without a hint of hesitation. The air was thick with silent judgment, but he seemed oblivious to it, or perhaps he simply didn't care. The meeting commenced. The powerful, guttural voices of council leaders echoed through the hall, discussing the usual galactic affairs, contested borders, complex trade agreements, and newly designated danger zones. The human just listened, his expression neutral, occasionally offering a slight nod. He was a silent observer in a room full of predators. Hours crawled by. The droning debate continued. Then, the human glanced at his wrist and reached into the small bag he had brought with him. A ripple of tension shot through the hall. Several council members, their instincts honed by millennia of survival, stiffened. Hidden security systems, silent until now, activated. Advanced sensors, capable of detecting a single rogue atom, locked onto the bag. The human, still calm, pulled out a small, sealed container. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, he opened the lid. The smell hit them like a physical blow. It was an olfactory assault, a chaotic symphony of scents that had no right to exist together. Sharp, burning, bitter, and yet sickeningly sweet, all underpinned by an aroma of advanced decay. Council members recoiled. A chorus of gasps and guttural coughs erupted across the chamber. On the main view screen, the air quality scanners flashed a frantic red. Biological threat detected. Acidic vapors present. Unknown organic compounds. Medical drones, pre-programmed for any emergency, deployed from hidden alcoves and hovered uncertainly. A few of the more volatile Deathworld delegates slammed their claws and appendages onto the polished tables in outrage. "What is that abomination?" demanded a craggy-skinned elder, his voice booming with authority and disgust. The human looked up from his container, his expression one of mild surprise. "Oh, this," he said, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "It's just my lunch." The word echoed through the great hall, landing with the force of a weapon. The delegates stared at the container. Steam, thick and pungent, rose from a bizarre concoction within. They saw what looked like charred, burnt plant matter, pieces of preserved animal flesh swimming in a murky sauce, and specks of vibrant red and yellow particles scattered throughout. The council's scientific scanners went into a frenzy. A delegate from a silicon-based species let out a violent, hacking cough, his internal filters overwhelmed. Another, whose species breathed methane, hastily activated his emergency breathing mask. A high-pitched voice, belonging to the head scientist of the Cathar Collective, shrieked in alarm. "The readings are off the charts. This substance contains multiple corrosive acids. It would dissolve the internal organs of any known life form on contact." Undeterred, the human picked up a utensil and stirred the mixture. A faint but distinct hissing sound filled the air as new compounds were released. That was the breaking point. Raw, primal panic began to spread. "This is a gross violation of council protocols," yelled a hulking, armored guard, his weapon system powering up. "You have brought a bioweapon into this sacred hall." The human froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. He looked genuinely confused. "A weapon," he repeated slowly. "No, this is food." He held up the container as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. From the science gallery, whispers turned into horrified exclamations. "Uncontrolled bacterial colonies. Predatory microbes. Its energy signature is that of decay." The human blinked. "Yeah," he said with a small smile. That's the good part. It adds flavor. A stunned silence fell over the hall. The medical drones floated aimlessly, their programming utterly incapable of processing the situation. The human, his hand steady, his face a mask of placid normality, lifted the spoon to his lips. He ate. Several delegates screamed. One of the avian species, whose biology was particularly sensitive, simply fainted, tumbling from his perch with a soft thud. The human's personal biomonitor feed, which was being displayed on a side screen for security purposes, lit up with warning signs. His internal acid levels spiked dangerously. His core temperature rose. His heart rate tripled. And then just as quickly, everything stabilized. He was fine. Still warm, he commented to himself, swallowing the mouthful. He seemed pleased. The ancient elder, the one who had first spoken, leaned forward, his multiple eyes wide with a mixture of terror and morbid fascination. His voice was a trembling whisper. You consume this by choice? Yes, the human replied matter-of-factly. Every few days or so. The elder's jaw, a complex arrangement of mandibles, worked silently for a moment. That meal would kill most sentient life in this room in mere seconds. The human just shrugged. We're used to it. He took another bite. The smell, impossibly, intensified. Now, the main security alarms began to blare, their strident calls echoing through the chamber. But they weren't screaming about a threat to the council. The system's logic had identified the food itself as a catastrophic containment breach, an entity that broke every known biological law. In a hushed, awestruck tone, a scientist murmured, "If that is what they consider food, then what in the galaxy is poison to them?" No one dared to answer. The human calmly continued eating, completely at ease, as if enjoying a quiet meal in his own home, not causing a diplomatic incident in a hall filled with beings who could shatter mountains. Finally, a council leader, a being of immense age and power, managed to find their voice. "Human, why did you bring this thing here?" The human paused, setting his spoon down. He looked at the leader. "It's a long meeting," he said simply, "and I didn't want to get hungry." That simple, logical answer was more terrifying than any threat or display of force could ever be. Hunger, a basic biological imperative, was a state so dangerous for humans that they would willingly consume a biohazardous cocktail to prevent it. Danger, to these soft-skinned creatures, was just a part of everyday life. As the human finished his lunch and neatly sealed the container, a profound and chilling understanding dawned upon the Deathworld Council. Humans weren't dangerous because of their warships or their weapons. They were dangerous because of what they had to endure just to exist. They were dangerous because of what they could survive. And this was only lunch. The galaxy was not ready for humanity's breakfast. The air in the Deathworld Council hall never quite returned to normal. After the human finished his meal, a sharp, heavy, almost living smell clung to every surface, stubbornly resisting the efforts of the high-powered air filters. Medical drones whirred nervously around the human's seat, their sensors going haywire. The human, for his part, just wiped his mouth, closed the lid on his container, and leaned back in his chair. For the first time since he'd opened it, the room felt marginally safer. The assembled council leaders, representatives from the galaxy's most lethal planets, stared in stunned silence. No one dared to speak. Finally, a senior scientist from a high-gravity death world pushed itself to its feet. Its body was a mass of thick, natural armor, evolved to withstand crushing atmospheric pressure and constant, planet-scouring storms. Its voice, when it spoke, was calm but laced with a deep, primal wariness. "Human," it began, its voice a low rumble. "You have introduced a substance into this chamber that violates every single biological safety protocol of this council." The human just nodded politely. "Sorry about that. I'm done eating now." "That is not the primary issue," the scientist countered, its many eyes fixed on the human. "The issue is that you are still alive." A wave of whispers rippled through the hall. On the main view screen, detailed biometric scans of the human's body flashed to life. The council had expected to see catastrophic internal damage, organs dissolving, systems failing, but there was nothing. In fact, the acid levels in his stomach were currently higher than most industrial-grade cleaners. Bacteria that were known to be lethal to dozens of species were not only present, but seemed to be coexisting peacefully. His body was adjusting to the chemical onslaught as if it were a daily routine. A medical expert from a viral swamp world whispered in awe, "His organs, they are designed for this." Next to him, a delegate whose species communicated through bioluminescence flashed a response. "No, they were trained for this." The council leader, a towering being of crystalline rock, slammed a appendage on the days. Explain yourself, human. The human leaned back, looking almost relaxed. We don't see it as deadly, he said simply. We just see it as food. The statement hung in the air, utterly incomprehensible to the assembly. Seeing their confusion, he elaborated. On our world, Earth, things spoil, they rot. So, over thousands of years, we learn to control that process. We ferment things, we pickle them, we even burn them on purpose. We add spices, he paused. Some of these spices cause pain. They make us sweat, they make our mouths burn, our eyes water. It's a mild, controlled poisoning. Pain tells us we're alive, the human added with a shrug. It also keeps us sharp. A collective shudder went through the council. Scans were played on the screen, highlighting the cascade of nerve signals. These is spices. They intentionally activate your pain receptors, asked a scientist, its voice trembling. Yes, some of us really enjoy it, actually. We have competitions to see who can eat the spiciest food. A new wave of fear washed over the room. Even the bacteria in his meal, which initial scans flagged as class for biohazards, were apparently beneficial. They help us digest, the human explained. They're symbiotic. They keep our guts healthy. Silence, near the back. A delegate from a world of apex predators let out a low, involuntary hiss. We are a species that fears nothing, it rasped. But even we would not consume that decay. The human offered a small, disarming smile. You didn't grow up on Earth. Council records flashed on the screens. Earth, a medium-class death world, tectonically unstable, climatically volatile, teeming with biological threats from micro to macro. So this is normal for you, the council leader demanded, its voice strained. Eating poison. The human shook his head. No, poison kills us. This just makes us stronger. Fear, pure and undiluted, rippled through the hall. An elder delegate, whose species had achieved spaceflight before humanity had discovered fire, projected a hologram into the center of the room. It was a rapid, brutal montage of Earth's history. Ice ages, plagues, famines, global wars that scorched continents. And through it all, humans, scrambling, fighting, surviving. Why, the elder asked, its ancient voice filled with a kind of horrified reverence. Why endure all this? Because we had no choice, the human said, his voice quiet but firm. And in that moment, the council understood. Humans hadn't evolved in a stable, comfortable cradle. They had been forged in constant, unrelenting danger. Their food, their water, the very air they breathed, had the potential to kill them. So they adapted. Their bodies learned to fight off invaders. Their minds learned to accept pain as a part of life. Their cultures turned danger into a routine, a challenge, even a source of pleasure. They didn't conquer their world, a scientist whispered to their neighbor. No, the other replied, its gaze locked on the human. They endured it. The human stood up, stretching slightly. You look at my lunch and you see danger. I look at it and I see home. I see family gatherings, celebrations, comfort. To the human, danger wasn't just a threat to be avoided. It was intertwined with the very concepts of love and community. For the council, beings who had eliminated all such unpredictability from their lives, this idea was so alien it felt like a psychic blow. It was as if a fundamental law of their universe had just been broken. The council leader finally found its voice. Human, if this is your normal food, what do you consider extreme? The human paused, considering the question seriously. Starving, he said. That single word hit the assembly harder than any weapon. Starving. It wasn't just a lack of food, it was a state of being. It was a word loaded with the history of a species shaped by desperation, of minds and bodies pushed to the absolute limit. It implied an endurance that bordered on the terrifying. Council members exchanged panicked glances. A species that thrives on casual danger, that turns poison into a delicacy, and whose greatest fear is simply having nothing to eat. A species like that would not be easily broken. A species like that would never surrender. The human sat back down, seemingly oblivious to the chaos he'd caused. Look, I didn't mean to scare anyone, he said, a little apologetically. I was just hungry. But it was too late. The council no longer saw a soft, weak newcomer from a backwater planet. They saw a survivor, a species that had made survival not just an instinct, but a habit, a culture, a way of life. And in the suffocating silence of the hall, a single, chilling thought began to form in the mind of every being present. If this is what humans are like, in times of peace, what in the stars would they become in a time of war? The Deathworld Council did not end the meeting. They could not. After what they had seen, letting the human leave without answers felt dangerous. Fear hung heavy in the air. thicker than the smell of his meal. The council leader exchanged silent signals with the elders. A decision was made. Human delegate, the leader said carefully. You will remain with us for further evaluation. The human looked surprised, but not afraid. Evaluation, he asked. A standard procedure. The leader replied. For all unknown species. That was a lie. This was not standard. The human stood slowly. Am I in trouble? No. The leader said. We simply wish to understand. You better. The human nodded. All right, I don't mind. That answer confused them. Most species resisted tests. Most demanded protection or rules. The human simply agreed. A transparent field formed around a small testing area. Medical machines moved into position. Chemical sensors, pressure systems, and environmental controls activated. The council watched closely. This will be a harmless test. A scientist announced. We will introduce mild environmental stress. The human stepped inside the field. Like what? He asked. Temperature changes, the scientist said. Air pressure variation. Minor chemical presence. The human shrugged. Sounds uncomfortable. But okay. The first test began. The temperature dropped suddenly. Cold flooded the chamber. Frost formed on the floor. Several council members pulled their cloaks tighter. The human rubbed his hands together. Feels like winter, he said. Sensors showed his body reacting. Blood flow changed, muscles tightened. But he did not panic. The temperature dropped further. This level causes hypothermia in most species, a scientist whispered. The human breathed slowly. I've camped in worse, he said. The test ended. Next came heat. The chamber warmed quickly, then hotter, then dangerously hot. Sweat formed on the human's skin. He wiped his forehead. Summer back home, he said with a small smile. The council exchanged uneasy looks. Pressure changed necks. Gravity increased. Many species could not stand under such force. The human bent his knees slightly and stayed upright. His heart rate increased. His breathing deepened. But he did not fall. This should damage bone structure, a medical drone reported. It doesn't, another replied. His skeleton is dense, flexible. The council grew silent. Then came the final test. A council elder raised a claw. This one is controversial, it said. The leader nodded. Proceed. A low-level chemical agent entered the chamber. Harmless to machines, deadly to most biological life. The human smelled it and frowned. That smells bad, he said. His lungs reacted. Coughing started. Council members leaned forward. Stop the test, a junior scientist asked nervously. Wait, the leader ordered. The human coughed again, then steadied himself. His body adjusted. Internal filters activated. Liver activity increased. Blood chemistry shifted. Slowly, the coughing stopped. The chemical agent was removed. The human leaned against the wall for a moment. You could have warned me, he said. That one wasn't fun, he added. Fun. The word echoed in the chamber. Medical scans showed mild irritation. No lasting damage. A council scientist whispered. He adapted in minutes. Another replied. No species does that. The human stepped out of the chamber. So, he said casually. Did I pass? No one answered. The council leader finally spoke. These conditions were meant to harm you. The human blinked. Oh, he said. I thought they were uncomfortable on purpose. That response changed everything. The tests had not proven human strength. They had proven human expectation. Humans expected the world to hurt them. A council elder spoke slowly. On your world is danger common. The human thought. Yeah, pretty common. Enough that you prepare for it. Yes, enough that children grow up with it. The human hesitated, then nodded. Yes, he said softly. The hall went quiet. That was worse than any data children. A species that raised its young in danger and survived. The council leader stood. You are dismissed, it said. For now. The human picked up his bag. Before leaving, he turned back. Did I do something wrong? He asked honestly. The leader looked at him. No, it said. You did something frightening. The human frowned slightly. I didn't mean to, he said. I know, the leader replied. And that was the most terrifying part. As the human walked out, council members remained frozen. They now understood a simple truth. Humans were not extreme. The universe was just mild compared to what shaped them. And if this was how a human handled tests, no one wanted to see how they handled threats. The Deathworld Council believed they were careful. They believed they were in control. But fear makes even ancient minds careless. After the human left the hall, emergency meetings began immediately. Elders argued, scientists shouted, and military advisors whispered dark possibilities. One truth became clear very quickly. Humans were not what the galaxy expected. We tested his body, a council scientist said, but we have not tested his limits. That is dangerous, an elder warned. So is ignorance, replied the military advisor. A new decision was made, not a test of survival, a test of response, a far more risky choice. The human was invited back, under the excuse of routine discussion. He arrived calmly, unaware of the tension waiting for him. The council hall looked normal again. Clean air, no alarms, but hidden systems were already active. The human sat down, relaxed. He even smiled slightly. The council leader spoke. Human delegate, it said. We have one final concern. Okay, the human replied. What is it? We need to understand how humans react under pressure. The human raised an eyebrow. Like stress? He asked. Yes, the leader said. Stress. That word meant very different things to them. Without warning, the lights dimmed. A low hum filled the hall. Security shields activated not to protect the human, but to trap him. The temperature dropped sharply. Then alarm screamed. Simulated breach detected. Hostile environment active. Several council members pretended to panic. It was an act. The human stood up instantly. What's happening? He asked. A system failure. The leader said calmly. Remain seated. The human did not sit. His eyes moved quickly, scanning exits and faces. Something felt wrong. The air grew thinner. Oxygen levels dropped. Some species could survive this. Humans should not. The human took a slow breath, then another. His body reacted immediately. Heart rate adjusted. Breathing slowed. He loosened his shoulders. Council sensors watched closely. He's conserving oxygen, a scientist whispered. On instinct. Then came sound. A deep, distant roar echoed through the hall. A predator call from Earth, one designed to trigger fear. The human froze for half a second. Then something changed. His posture shifted. Not fear, focus. The roar played again. The human clenched his jaw. Adrenaline surged. Muscles tightened. But his eyes remained clear. He's not panicking, a scientist said. He's preparing. The council leader raised a claw. End the simulation, it ordered. Too late. The human spoke. This isn't an accident, he said quietly. The room fell silent. You're testing me, he continued, and you're doing it wrong. The council leader hesitated. How so? It asked. The human took a step forward. When humans feel danger, he said, we don't wait for instructions. Another step. We act. Security drones shifted slightly. The human noticed. His voice hardened, not loud, but firm. On my world, he said. Panic kills. Hesitation kills. He looked directly at the council leader. So we learned something early. What? The elder asked. The human answered slowly. When things go bad, he said, we stop pretending everything is fine. Oxygen levels dropped further. This time, the human coughed, but he did not retreat. Instead, he reached into his bag. Council guards reacted instantly. Do not move, one shouted. The human stopped. I'm not pulling a weapon, he said. I'm pulling a mask. He held it up. A simple breathing mask, homemade, worn, used. I carry this, he said, because air fails. That sentence hit harder than any test. The human put the mask on. His breathing stabilized. Council systems showed the truth. He was prepared, not for comfort, for failure. The predator sound stopped. The lights returned. Oxygen levels normalized. The simulation ended. The human removed the mask slowly. You wanted to see how we react under pressure, he said. Yes, the leader admitted. The human nodded. Then, listen carefully. He stepped back to his seat. Humans don't rise when things are easy, he said. We rise when things fall apart. Silence filled the hall. You saw me calm earlier, he continued. That's not strength. The council leaned in. This, he said, tapping the mask, is strength, preparation, adaptation, acceptance of disaster. A council elder whispered. They planned for collapse. Another replied. They expect it. The human looked tired. Now, are we done? He asked. The leader hesitated, then nodded. Yes, it said. The human picked up his bag. Before leaving, he turned once more. You should know something, he said. That was a mild situation. The door opened behind him. And if you ever put humans in real danger, he added, we won't sit quietly. The doors closed. The Deathworld Council remained frozen. They had tested the human's body. They had tested his mind. Now they understood the final truth. Humans do not fear chaos. They are built for it. And the council had just stepped too close to finding out why. A scientist finally broke the quiet, its voice barely a whisper. They were prepared. The words hung in the still air. Prepared for system failure. Prepared for fear. Prepared for betrayal. An elder, seated nearby, folded its limbs slowly, a gesture of deep contemplation. That mask, it rasped, it was not advanced technology. No, another replied, its voice resonating with a newfound understanding. It was experience. The long stagnant data screens flared to life, no longer showing routine reports, but now filled with every scrap of information they had on humanity, human physiology, human history, human survival patterns. They had looked at all of this before, of course, but now they were looking at it differently. Now they were truly seeing. A military advisor was the first to articulate the terrifying realization dawning on them all. They analyzed the subtle shift in the human's posture, the immediate change to a controlled, measured pattern of breathing. One scientist paused the footage at a critical moment. Here, it said, pointing a trembling digit at the screen. This is the key. The image showed the exact instant the human delegate realized it was all a test. There was no flash of anger, no sign of panic or fear. Instead, there was a quiet, deliberate moment of restraint. That was mercy, the scientist whispered, the word echoing in the stunned silence. Mercy, the military advisor scoffed, the concept foreign in this context. Yes, the scientist affirmed, its conviction growing. He could have panicked. He could have fought back, reacted violently. He could have believed his life was truly in danger and responded accordingly. But he didn't. He chose to warn us. He showed us the flaw in our own system. The council leader lowered its head slightly, a gesture of profound respect. Humans stop pretending when survival is threatened, it said softly, but they also stop pretending when others are being foolish, and that, somehow, was worse. A species that so clearly understood weakness and chose not to exploit it immediately, but to teach a lesson instead. An emergency vote was called. The subject, human classification. The grand chamber darkened, and holographic symbols floated above the central table, glowing in the dim light. The options appeared one by one: emerging species, moderate death world, high-risk civilization, and then, the last one, an option that had not been used in thousands of cycles. An option reserved for beings of incomprehensible resilience, existential survivor. An elder spoke into the hush. If humans are pushed, it warned, they will not seek victory. That's not their ultimate goal. What will they seek? Another member asked, its voice laced with apprehension. Stability. The elder answered simply. At any cost. The vote began one by one. Council members cast their lot. One by one, they selected the final, terrifying option, existential survivor. The classification locked in with a soft, final chime, and with it came a new set of protocols, immutable and absolute. No more forced tests, no intimidation tactics, no pressure of any kind, and one final, overarching clause, underlined in crimson: never, ever corner humanity. A junior council member, new to its post, hesitated before speaking up. What if another species? What if they ignore this warning? The room fell silent once more. This time, it was the military advisor who answered, its voice cold and final. Then the council will not intervene. The statement was unprecedented. It meant the rest of the galaxy would have to learn about humanity the hard way. A new document was drafted. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a treaty. It was a warning. It would be sent quietly, discreetly, to every major power in the known galaxy. The message was simple, and all the more chilling for it. Humans are common peace. Humans are controlled in crisis. Humans are dangerous only when their survival is questioned, and survival, to humans, is sacred. The council leader authorized the message. As the system transmitted the warning across the vast expanse of space, something else was happening. The human delegate was observed leaving the station. He walked through the bustling docking ring completely alone. No guards followed him. No security scanners tracked him. A junior officer watched his unhurried progress. He doesn't look powerful, the officer commented softly to the station commander. The commander, its eyes never leaving the human's form, replied, power doesn't always look loud. The human paused near the airlock, gazing out at the stardusted void. They accepted pain as an integral part of life, not as an anomaly to be avoided, and because of that, they endured. The council leader officially ended the session. From this day forward, it declared, its voice resonating with authority, humanity is not to be treated as weak. The lights in the chamber dimmed, leaving only the leader's silhouette. And never, it added, its voice dropping to a quiet, solemn whisper, as it gracefully moved into the vastness of open space. A single, sobering thought echoed in the minds of the Deathworld Council. If one human, armed with nothing more than a packed lunch and a simple breathing mask, could shake the foundations of this ancient council, what could all of humanity, united and determined, possibly due together. In the quiet vastness of the galaxy, a message rippled from the Deathworld Council. It wasn't a booming declaration or a fearful threat, it was data, cold, hard facts about a species called humanity, their biology, their tumultuous history, and their peculiar behavior under extreme stress. Most galactic powers paid close attention, analyzing every byte. But one did not. The Car Dominion, an empire ancient, proud, and built on fear, scoffed at the Council's new classification for humans, existential survivor, a car commander. Reviewing the data, sneered at the details. They eat poison and breathe thin air, he said to his subordinates. That means nothing. Every species has a breaking point, and we are masters at finding it. The Dominion decided it was time to put this new classification to the test, not with diplomacy, but with their signature method, pressure. Their target was a human trade station, peacefully orbiting near a border system. Without warning, car warships materialized, forming a silent, impenetrable blockade. Supply routes were severed. The station's power was throttled from an external source. No shots were fired, no torpedoes launched, just a slow, suffocating squeeze. The Dominion watched and waited, expecting the inevitable panic, the frantic calls for help, the eventual surrender. Inside the station, the changes were felt almost immediately. Power levels dropped, triggering amber alert lights. Supply manifests showed incoming shipments as indefinitely delayed. Communications with the outside galaxy became distorted and slow. But there were no screams, no riots, no desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, the human station coordinator calmly gathered her crew in the central hub. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Looks like we have a situation. We've trained for this." Her words weren't a desperate plea for courage. They were a simple statement of fact. "Let's begin protocols. Ration what we have. Double-check our repair kits. Adapt." Her crew nodded. They knew their roles. Backup power generators, running on a completely different fuel source, hummed to life. Stabilizing critical systems, emergency food rations, designed to last for months, were brought out from deep storage. Old, reliable, non-electronic tools were pulled from dusty cabinets. Humans, it seemed, had a deeply ingrained habit of planning for failure long before it ever knocked on their door. Days turned into a week. The Car Dominion grew impatient. Their displays showed a station that was stable, frustrated. They sent a terse message: surrender control of the station, or conditions will worsen. The human reply was shockingly brief. Just 3 words: "We are stable." Infuriated by this quiet defiance, the Dominion tightened its grip. They began manipulating the station's life support. The air thinned, power levels dropped further. The internal temperature plummeted. Inside, the humans put on jackets. They sealed off non-essential sectors to conserve heat, huddling closer together in the core modules. In the low, humming light of the backup systems, they didn't despair. They told stories, they shared jokes, they played games. They simply endured. A car observer, glued to the internal surveillance feeds, watched in disbelief. "They should be braking," he reported to his commander. "Instead, they are smiling." This simple act of quiet contentment confused the Dominion more than any act of aggression could have. Finally, the car commander had enough. He ordered a boarding action, not an attack, but a show of absolute dominance. His soldiers would march in and take control from the weakened, freezing inhabitants. When the car boarding party breached the airlock, they expected to find frail, shivering bodies, ready to collapse. Instead, they found the humans waiting for them, standing calmly in the main corridor. They weren't armed. They weren't afraid. They were prepared. As the last car soldier stepped through, emergency blast doors slammed shut behind them with a heavy thud. The lights flickered and shifted to a deep red. The artificial gravity fluctuated, not enough to crush them, but just enough to throw the heavily armored soldiers off balance. The human coordinator stepped forward. "This station is not a battlefield," she said, her voice echoing in the suddenly tense corridor. "But you just walked into a survival zone." As she spoke, the station's environmental controls responded to her command. The air filtration mix changed, introducing trace elements harmless to humans, but disorienting to the car's physiology. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. The humans barely seemed to notice, their bodies already acclimated. The car soldiers, however, began to struggle. Their advanced armor suddenly felt like a lead weight. Their breathing became labored. "This environment is unsafe," the car officer shouted, his voice strained. The human coordinator simply nodded. "Yes," she replied calmly. "That's why we trained for it." There was no violence, Not a single shot was fired. After several long, uncomfortable minutes, the humans restored the station's environment and reopened the blast doors. They escorted the shaken, silent car soldiers back to their ship. The message was delivered, loud and clear, without a single weapon being raised. Humans didn't need a war to win. They just needed time. The car Dominion withdrew, quietly. Their ships vanished from the system as silently as they had appeared. Across the galaxy, the Deathworld Council received the full report of the incident. No casualties, no property destruction. No war, just a quiet, unyielding display of endurance. The council leader, a being of immense age and wisdom, closed its many eyes slowly. They listened to our warnings, it said. A council elder replied, no, they learned. In response, the council issued one final, permanent update to humanity's classification file. It now read, Humanity, a species built to last. Back on Earth, a human delegate to the council watched from his apartment window as a storm rolled in over the city. The rain fell in sheets and the wind howled. The power flickered, then died. Without a word, people across the city lit candles. They cooked simple meals over gas stoves or campfires. They waited. It was normal. The delegate thought about the Grand Council Hall, the alien empires, their tests and their fears. He smiled faintly. Humans didn't seek to conquer the galaxy or rule it. They just sought to survive in it. And that simple, relentless drive for survival had a way of changing everything around them. Far away, in the hallowed archives of the Deathworld Council, a final conclusion was recorded. Other species adapt to peace, the report stated. Humans adapt to uncertainty. This unique trait made them dangerous to threaten and utterly impossible to erase. The galaxy would come to remember one simple, terrifying truth. If a species could turn poison into food, pressure into routine, and failure into a rehearsal, then nothing could ever truly break them. Not hunger. Not fear. Not the universe itself. Because for humans, endurance wasn't a weapon. It was just a way of life. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the cosmos. Let us know in the comments what you think a human's most terrifying food might be. Until next time, stay curious,